let's set up. Okay.
All right. The hammer is on the podcast. Thank you, Steph, for coming on.
True. Thank you for having me.
This is really awesome. I've told you before, like, and it was really cool that you FaceTime me earlier today to tell me about the setting up the podcast and stuff. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm FaceTiming with Steph Roach right now. That's so cool.
That's so funny. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just a normal person, and I felt so bad. I messed up our time yesterday, so I wanted to make sure that it was all good for today.
Well, actually, it's perfect. It actually worked out even better because you have a giant American flag in your background, and it's Flag Day.
It's Flag Day today. I didn't even know that.
Yep, it's Flag Day, so this is perfect. So, I guess I kind of like I know a little bit about you just from following you for so long on Instagram and social media and watching all the adaptive stuff that you do, and it's really like so. And this sounds, I don't want it to sound weird, but like some of the most inspirational, I guess, impactful people that I watched and got to hang around had cerebral palsy when I was growing up, and then through like playing softball, and there was some kids like
That's
some
cool.
younger kids. Yeah. So our guy that installed our water softener, he had a water softener business and a like reverse osmosis, and he did all this filtration system. His name was Larry. I can remember his name, but all growing up, my parents sees him, and he had cerebral palsy, and like owned his own business, ran his own company, did everything. It was like really, it was I would see him all the time and talk to him, and then hung around several kids that would come to the baseball field and softball field, and they were just these these beaming lights of energy, like positivity. They always made me feel like they made me feel awesome just talking to them, just because of their, I don't say that, their attitude, their mentality was different than other people, which I found awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that. Thank you. As much as I'd like to think that we live like this super normal life, and I'm married now, and we have a dog, and we have this awesome life, and we run a business. But I think when you grow up with some sort of difference, whether it's adaptive needs or whatever you want to call it, I think there's like this innate sense of just being a little bit more patient with life, right? And like kind of having to take things a little bit slower, and not in the sense of like not taking them for granted, but like just knowing that it takes me, 20 plus minutes to get dressed in the morning, and like 10 minutes to literally get out of bed in the morning. So I don't really take those things for granted, because there are some people that don't have the same abilities as I do, right? And so even though my situation might seem challenging to some people, to me, I feel like I have like a plethora of abilities that I should never take for granted.
And that's like, I guess that's the outlook that I was referring to. They all seem to, and maybe it was just the people that I was around, but they all seem to have that same outlook, which made me think of all my situations and what I'm doing. And I don't know if it gave me more patience or not, but it definitely made me look at, what I had, what I was doing, and what I needed to be like focused on. I guess I was more focused. Even after talking to like the little kids, I was just more focused in mine, because I'm like, I need to apply their mindset to my life.
Yeah. And I think too, we talked earlier today and you told me you had 4 children, right? And I think one of the coolest things and one of the best interactions I have is with children that are very curious. And they're not curious about, well, what's wrong with you, right? They're just curious about the different things that we use to get around, or what makes us different, right? And so they're not meaning it in a harmful way. And I think one of the most special things is that parents allow their children to have conversation with people like myself, because then it teaches them not to be scared, right? And if I were to come up to one of your children, I would never want them to be scared of me, right? I would want them to feel safe and feel loved, you know?
Yeah, that does make total sense. And sometimes I lose track of it just because my mom was a nurse. We spent a lot of time in nursing homes and around like all different variety of things, right? And the different things that she was doing, and she went to all different kind of areas of hospital, nursing homes, home health. Like she went all over. Like she's a natural caregiver, but I guess seeing all that and growing up with it, I never really looked at anything that way. I never really treated anybody different because that's the way she taught us. Like we were around that and we were around people all the time. So I take that for granted that not everybody's had that opportunity in life, and I call it an opportunity because it's what it is. Like to learn those things early on is valuable, I think. So that makes total sense with the
Yeah.
kids. I want to know more about Steph though. I want to know how you grew up, and I want to lead into what got you into the CrossFit world and the working out fitness world in general, and then your coaching and all that. But take us back to the beginning because the origin story is always awesome.
So I actually grew up in a family of four children. So I'm a twin, and then I have an older brother who's 9.5 months older than us, and I have a younger sister. And everybody around me was able-bodied, so I lived in this able-bodied world and was constantly just adapting to the world around me. So I didn't really know anything different. I never really knew that I was different in a way. I never knew that I knew that I had cerebral palsy and I knew how to explain it to people, but it was never like I was never bullied in school or anything like that. I always had really good friends. Um, it was more of just like wanting to prove to people that I could live the most normal life, if that makes sense. So I went to mainstream school and then I went away to sleepaway camp. I got to do some really cool things when I was younger, and I was a model for big companies like Toys R Us, Kids R Us, Good Housekeeping, and I got to do some really cool things there. So I don't know, I lived like this, just like a really active, normal life. And I went from elementary school, from first grade all the way through high school. I was the only physically challenged student in my entire school district. So I was just kind of making stuff up as I went along, in the sense of like adapting for PE, or like just accommodating for myself and advocating for myself. So, in a very early age, I understood that my voice was really powerful. And so, if I needed something and I needed to ask for something or tell somebody that I needed something to be better, I needed to use that voice. And it started making an impact at a very young age.
That okay? So you were a model for Toys R Us.
I was,
That's so awesome.
yeah, I was. Yeah, I was in one of those, like well, a lot of them, but I have like the old, um, like Christmas toy magazine things where like you got to pick out the big book of toys or whatever.
Yes, I
I was one
remember.
of those kids, and so,
I don't know how many people will
yeah,
remember that, but I remember those books. You would get them they were like that thick, and you could flip through all of them.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I was on the cover of a couple of those.
Do you still have the picture?
I do. I'd have to send it to you, but you can definitely check it out.
That's so awesome. How did you get that gig? Now I'm curious how you even how do you come across getting the modeling gig for the Toys R Us thing?
Honestly, I don't know. My mom was the one that was like, she was really supportive about it and like wanting me to do it. She found me an agent when I was really young, and you know, I don't know. They said that I was pretty cute for a little kid, and they were looking for somebody that was like me, and so I guess that's what happened. But I think one of the coolest things I ever did, it went out of business now, but I was a model for Tower Records, and I don't know if many people remember
You say
Tower Records,
do you
but
say
you know,
tower?
yeah, Tower Records. They don't exist anymore. They're
Yes.
done.
No,
But
I remember it.
they were a big music store. They were a big music store in New York City, and I got to model for them, which was cool.
Oh my gosh, that is really rad that you got to model for Tower Records. That's so cool.
Yeah,
What a
yeah.
so then
So
where did it go? Like where did you get into the fitness CrossFit world? Because you've been in it for a good chunk now.
yeah, it's almost over 9 years, which is pretty crazy to say. I really got into it, so you have to go way back to when I was actually 15. I lost one of my best friends. He passed away from a neck aneurysm. And he was born with no arms, and he actually played basketball with his feet. And he was probably one of the first adaptive athletes that I had really known personally, and he was amazing. He just didn't take no for an answer. He could pick up like a dead basketball off the floor with his foot and make it start bouncing again and just bounce it up and down the court. And it was like the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. It was pretty cool. So after he had passed away, I really wanted to continue his legacy. And so I didn't really know how to do that because I couldn't play wheelchair basketball. I have no coordination whatsoever. But I figured that, if he could do something, if he was alive still, he would want to do something that really helped people with adaptive needs be seen as athletes. And I actually became a competitive hand cyclist for a while. Was a competitive hand cyclist for about 4 years. And in the midst of being a hand cyclist, I wanted to get stronger to race faster. And so I found CrossFit in 2012. May 3rd of 2012 was my first CrossFit workout.
And then it was over from there. Did you just like go into a gym and try it out, like drop in and be like, "Oh, this is it." Because
Yeah.
that's what I did. Kind of the same thing. Like I didn't like working out before. I did all sports and all this, and then I just this I saw Chris Spieler on a video somewhere on the internet, and I was like, "That looks like something I might like." And so I went in and tried it, and it was instant, like
Yeah.
hooked.
Yeah, so I went, at the time I was just finishing university. So one of my friends was a volleyball coach at our university, but she was also a CrossFit coach. And I was sitting with her at our lunch cafeteria, and I had said, Jesse, man, like I'm just so tired of doing like the regular gym thing, and I'd really like to try something new. And she was like, well, I'm a CrossFit coach at this gym in Boca. You should come and hang out with me and see if you like it. And I met the owner of the gym, and like I instantly just fell in love with their community. He'd never worked with anybody with any sort of different ability before. He'd never worked with anybody with CP before. And he was like really, really tough on the outside. He was really muscular, and he like wanted to pretend like he had no emotions whatsoever. But then like I got to know him, and he was a big softy on the inside, and we started working together, and it was just kind of like this magic of understanding that neither of us had any idea what we were doing, and I just wanted to try something new. And that's kind of how it all started, and it's just been like a natural progression from there. And I know it sounds so simple to say, but it literally was just, hey, I'm Steph, I'm an adaptive hand cyclist, and I want to get stronger. Never in a million years did I think it would create the rest of my career.
That and that's the wild part about it is that what were you doing anything before that and when you were the cyclist, like did you have other plans? You were finishing university. Like, what were you going to go into and do before that?
Yeah, so I did have plans and they were already in motion. I was graduating college. I had a degree in advertising and public relations, but I was going on to get my master's in higher education. And I wanted to work in housing and residence life. I was extremely involved in all of my activities at school, and I really wanted to be involved in student housing. Um, but I was about 6 months into my master's program when I was just like, I love fitness and I don't want to be in housing anymore. And I ended up working at the university's fitness center. I went to Nova Southeastern University in South Florida, and they have this fitness facility, 110,000 square feet, and they've never had any physically challenged students be any sort of employee, let alone supervisor, to the facility. And so when I heard that, I just wanted to try to go for the supervisor position. And so
so you're
I
like
did.
supervisor, huh? Nobody's ever been that. I think I can handle it.
Yeah. And so that was kind of what started things rolling. And then I had begged the administration to let me go to a CrossFit gym in Virginia for 4 months to do my internship. And that's how I number one, graduated. And then I became the world's first CrossFit trainer with cerebral palsy, level 1 and now level 2.
Yeah, that's what. It's wild how your life just changed. You're into your 6 months into your master's, and you just said, I'm doing something different. Like, I'm done. I'm gonna switch my
Yeah, well,
entire
I
career and
completed
plan
my
it.
master's.
What's that?
I completed my master's degree. I just haven't done anything with it.
That's even better. Like you didn't even stop. You're like, I'm doing something different, but I'm gonna finish my master's while you did this at the same time.
Uh-huh.
That's
It was
most.
part of my I made it part of my degree. That was a requirement to graduate, was you needed an internship. And so I was just like, sure, student affairs and CrossFit coaching are definitely one and the same, right?
That is so awesome. You just totally worked everything. I mean, not that you're not paying for it, you're going to school and all that, but you definitely found all of the coolest avenues to go down. Like, you made it, I would say, easier on yourself, but like, you're already doing your master's program. You just use that you combine the two together and you figure out a way to get both of them done and then do what you love after that. So you have a master. You might be the most well qualified, decorated level 2 CrossFit coach in the world then.
No, I think too, I think about that time in my life. And at that time, when I was graduating college, I had a job offer that was a really amazing financial opportunity. Like, I was going to work in corporate I was actually going to work for corporate for Walgreens, believe it or not.
Wow,
And I was going to be like
Go ahead.
I was going to be like a, I don't even really know what it was, but like a disability advocate of some sort. And I just remember almost taking the job and like looking at it and being like, that's a lot of money, but I don't want to do it. I don't want to sit behind a desk. And I didn't. I went and got my master's instead.
I love this though because, and this is part of the reason why I think you're successful and you are who you are in the industry you're in, because you know this, and we kind of had this talk today, like a little bit, but my wife is a CrossFit coach, and she's a coach, and I'm around the gym owners, and I work with them too as well. And owning a gym, being a CrossFit coach, you're not getting rich. There's no way you're getting rich off that. Like, it's not a lot of money. Whereas I also had a friend. This is funny you say Walgreens, because I had a friend whose his parents worked in Walgreens, and they moved up, up the ladder to where they had a good job at Walgreens. It wasn't anything crazy, but it was a really good job at Walgreens. But it paid extremely well. And then the stocks and everything else that they give their employees, it's crazy how they retired and, the wealth they built at Walgreens. So when you say it's a lot of money, it's like
Yeah.
real world. You could have had a lot of money going to this job, and yet you took the time to look at
Yeah.
what you wanted, and you went towards that direction.
I feel though that people in my life were expecting a lot less of me. Like, they were going to stick me behind a desk and just be fine with me living that life. And that isn't and will never be me. And so, I did own a gym at one point, and it doesn't make you money. Trust me. And it was probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. And I look back at it and I feel extremely blessed and extremely lucky and fortunate that I had the support that I did from, friends and family to basically successfully fail at that endeavor, because it was a huge and expensive learning experience.
So is this the gym you talked about earlier that got shut down when everything hit? That. So it was shut down from something
Yeah.
outside. Was it something that you were going to keep going if this didn't happen to it, or is it something outside of your control shut it down?
So I will be honest and say that, like, I think COVID, in a sense, really helped us because it sped up the process of just the bleeding, basically. It kind of like stopped the bleeding in a way. And we had to quickly figure out how we were going to pivot. And that's how Staying Driven was born. Was I had members paying me $100+ a month to be part of Hammer Driven, and we could no longer have our doors open. So I wanted to give them a quality experience that they would still want to pay for. But my husband and I sat down and we also said, if we're going to close the doors, why don't we do something with the same quality but an extremely affordable price? And then that's how Staying Driven was born. Literally, like, overnight.
You just adapted to your situation. Like, you took something and just made it work for you in the same industry because of and the steps to do that is the things outside your control stepped in and said, well, now I'm really shutting you down, and this is not going to work. And you went, okay, I've got to figure out something new anyway. Let's go for it.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, we had what other option did we have? I wasn't going to stop coaching, and I knew that I have something that's special. I have the ability to look at you and say, okay, are you a seated or a standing athlete? If you're standing, you're doing this. If you're seated, you're doing this, and this is how we're adapting it. And it just came naturally to me. And so I never really thought that you needed to have four walls and a whiteboard to be successful. But with the growth of Staying Driven, it was proven right.
But now you coach all athletes, right? I mean, you're a level 2 CrossFit coach. You don't have a special book for adaptive
Yeah.
athletes in the CrossFit program.
No, so I miss coaching in person. I miss coaching most barbell movements or heavy lifts just because people don't really have that equipment at home. But if you took me into your garage right now and you showed me what you had, I could coach you from anywhere because I use my voice, right? I use my words. Verbal cueing is like my jam. So when you go to a level 2 training course, they teach you how to use your words and how to use your verbal cueing more than anything because it's important, right? You never know who's going to walk into your gym or into your space. And so if you're able to physically communicate to somebody and effectively communicate to somebody what you want them to do, you don't have to physically be anywhere. You could be anywhere in the world.
I think that's an important thing that you just said, the ability to communicate. I mean, there's a reason that me and my wife don't let our kids have, we're the weird ones, right? Our kids don't have cell phones until they at least get into high school minimum. And the reason being is we want them to be able to communicate like we're doing now and talk and figure out ways and emotions and facial expressions and the whole thing. What you said is crazy important because not always the best athlete, the guy that's jacked or the girl that's like got 70 abs, between her sports bra and her shorts, is the best coach. The best coach is somebody who can who can verbally cue and instruct you in a way that is understandable, that it sinks in. And also being able to realize the different athletes and adapt your cues to that athlete.
And I do that with 50 people on a screen. So it's just like, we can have people that can't see, can't hear, they have one leg, they are completely able-bodied, but they're, in their 50s, 60s, they're in their 30s. You just don't know who's coming on screen. So, and sometimes we have corporate memberships with Staying Driven. And so sometimes these corporate memberships open it up to their entire organizations. And I can have 30 people on a screen at one time, and you could have 12 people in different locations where you're just like, I don't even know where people are, or what equipment people have access to.
So that's another challenge with that. And it's something actually that brings up something in my head that's really curious to me is, out of all the people that have tried this Zoom thing and all of that, and it just didn't quite mesh, like there's something missing, how is it that you have made it work so good for you? Like you flip that on its head where it's like, it feels so impersonal having to do it in Zoom and over the thing, but you have figured out a way to coach people. Like you said, everybody's got different equipment at their house, so you've got to adapt on the fly, or you've got to be able to make things work with your programming and how you do things. You've made this something very difficult for everybody else to deal with. You've actually turned that into a better thing than your actual gym.
Yeah, and that's what's fascinating to me, right? Is that, and in the last year and a half, I have grown as a person in the sense of my ability to handle financials and understand the business a little bit better. And yes, it helps that there's not a lot of overhead, but I still have, in less than a year, so our business isn't even a year old yet. August 1st will be 1 year. I have 5 coaches, and 2 of them are quadriplegics, and one of them lives in Canada.
And one of them's what?
So, lives in Canada.
Oh, wow. That's really awesome that you've got 5 coaches.
Yeah, and so I mean and they all have their own styles and they all have their own ability to, run the class however they see fit. The biggest things that are important to us are safety, movement effectiveness, and having fun. As long as they're moving well, they're safe, and they're having fun, that's all I care about.
I think that is what, I mean, if your goal is to just be fit and lose weight or get healthy and all that, that should be your goal anyways, just to move and have fun. Like learn to move well and have fun. Like if you don't enjoy it, you're not going to
Yeah.
stick with it.
And that's the thing too, is we thought about doing it. Uh, so when people sign up for a membership for Staying Driven, they pay $20 a month. So, and they get unlimited access to all of our classes. And people will be like, "Whoa, that's a low number." But we didn't just make up the number, right? We didn't just pull it out of our butt and be like, "Oh, this number," right? We found something that works for people, that is effective for people, but they're still paying for a full experience. So they're not paying $20 and doing nothing. They're paying for the experience of being held accountable. They sign on to class and they know that someone's going to be there helping them move forward, right? And so, like, the coolest things for me is that 95% of our population is adaptive. And that happened organically. We didn't market for it. It just happened.
That and that's does that have some to do because weren't you involved in like the competition side as far as like when Wadapalooza was making it a big deal to have adaptive athletes, which I thought was rad. But like, weren't you kind of involved like in that first little stage of when they were making adaptive athletes a more of a popular thing to have them at competitions?
I created the adaptive division for Wadapalooza.
There you go. Okay, so if so, your name
Yeah.
has kind of become
Yeah.
like a thing in that world. Then I'm guessing.
Yeah. And I love CrossFit, and I will always have a passion for the methodology and the community, but we're not a CrossFit affiliate anymore. And I teach people to be functional, and I want them to be healthy and happy. And I I am still involved in the greater CrossFit community, but I'm also involved in my own life, and 5 years ago, I was diagnosed with cancer, and I had to deal with that and kind of figure how that was all going to work. And I was my now husband, we were newly dating at the time, and so life takes on new priorities, and I love the CrossFit community and everything that it's kind of afforded me. But at the end of the day, like, I'm just doing Steph, right? I'm doing what's best for me and my family, and if that means that creating a new avenue of functional fitness, I'm totally down for it. Who knows what will happen in 5 years from now?
Okay, I have to go because this is a crazy story that I have to know about. The cancer one, but this is like cancer's a crazy disease anyway, right? It's enough in and of itself. But you had just started dating somebody. Like
Yeah,
before you found out you had cancer, you were dating this person, very new, dating this person, right?
yeah,
So now you
yeah.
have, I'm just setting, like in my mind, I'm sitting here thinking you just start dating somebody and now you learn you have cancer and all the
Uh-huh.
emotional stress that goes on with is this person going to stay? Is this going to happen? I really like this person. I've got cancer. What's going like this is a whole lot of things you're putting on your plate all at once right now.
Yeah. And so, first of all, his name is Ty, or Tyler, but we call him Ty. And he is literally my best friend and the most amazing human that I know. But we were dating 5 months, and we had went on a date on a Saturday night. It was April 16th. And I went to the restroom, and when I went back to transfer into my chair, I pressed up into my chair, and underneath my right arm was this like excruciating pain. And I was like, I probably hurt myself rowing because I decided to row a 10K that day. That wasn't smart. And yeah, that was really dumb. And he was a fireman at the time, and he was like, "No, I think you should probably like get that checked out and we should go to the doctor. So that Monday morning, we ended up going to the doctor and they looked underneath my armpit and there was a huge lump. And then the doctor started going all the way down my body and the lumps were everywhere. They were everywhere in my body, from like my armpit to my stomach, everywhere in my body. So the doctor was like, you need to get this checked out like now. And within, I don't know, maybe 2, 3 weeks, I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma stage 3B.
Man, like, what's what's your reaction with getting, like, you got that diagnosis, and then were you at all worried that this was going to affect you and Ty's relationship at that moment?
So, yes and no, in the sense that we had connected so well so early on. And when we first thought that I had cancer, we weren't sure. So like we didn't know. And I remember like coming out of my bathroom like crying. And I was like, all you think about with cancer is like losing your hair and dying because that's what you know in the media, right? So like I looked at him and I was like, "Are you?" And we had like just said "I love you" and like we were moving our relationship to like the next level. And I had looked at him and I was like, "Are you still gonna love me if I didn't have hair?" And he was like, "Yes." So like it wasn't like he never made like a big deal out of it. And I think like the most funny but ironic thing was that, and I look back at it now and it was funny, but I was actually with Rich Froning at the time. We were doing a commercial shoot for Chris Henshaw and Reebok. We were doing something for them, and the doctor had told me to go on my trip because they weren't going to have any results for about a week. So I had to go to Cookville and do this like commercial thing, and I knew something was like wrong with me, but we didn't know. So I like tried to push through this workout and I couldn't. I couldn't, my body just like, I was so exhausted. And I remember looking at pictures and being like, man, I feel so fit because you could see like my abs and all my muscles. And I was so sick. Like, so the irony of like being with the fittest man on earth and like finding out that you're really sick was pretty intense.
Do you think that all the working out beforehand helped you realize, like, know something was wrong with your body like that?
Oh, 100%. 100%. So, and like Ty and I joke about it now, but when we were first dating, Ty's like 6'3", 280. Okay, he's a big dude, and like we would go out on dates, and I would eat more than him, and I was like this tiny little thing, and he's like, where does it all go? Like I don't know. And then we were realizing that I was losing a lot of weight, and then I started having some more of the symptoms, and it started all making sense. So yes, we went through a lot, but he literally is one of the main reasons that I'm alive and happy. And we had so, like, this is gonna sound so crazy because cancer is not supposed to be funny, but like we had so much fun, and like we just had really good days, and there were very few, like, yes, there were some tough days and it was really hard, but there were so many more good days than there were bad ones. And so like when we look back at that now, it seems like just like a flash in the pan, you know?
That is so wild that you can say it like that. When I think most people, I mean, and maybe me included, I've kind of taken the perspective of I'll never know. You know, as a man, I would like to think I love violence, like violent movies and army war movies and things like that, and I would like to think that I would be the best warrior ever. But I've never been put in a situation where I've been shot at or things like that. So I never really know. And until you get into a situation, you actually do something, you never know how you're going to react. So when you hear things like that,
Don't get
like,
me wrong, though.
what?
Don't get me wrong. Like, don't get me wrong. There were things emotionally as a woman, and especially as a woman that really, I take my appearance, I take pride in my appearance, right? And the fact that like I can put myself together and I know that I'm beautiful and like I don't want to sound cocky, but I just liked how I looked, right? And so like to watch all of that change and I lost my hair, I lost my eyebrows, I lost my eyelashes. That was really hard. And then I did the opposite, where a lot of people lose weight on chemo. I gained a ton of weight because of the hormones that they were giving me. And so at the end of it all, I was like, are people going to take me seriously as a fitness instructor if I look like I don't do fitness? And so there were definitely struggles in that sense. But I will tell you that the way that that man loves me, I could never even describe. And the way that he makes me love myself and like reminds me to love myself is pretty special.
It's very special. I value, my wife has really taught me, like, I thank her for, like, I credit her for a lot of the things that I'm doing now where I enjoy life. I'm a happier human. I'm way more confident. I tell her all the time because I think, and I've learned that a spouse like that is so valuable, and just friends like that in general, but really someone that you're close to like that can lift you up and make you a better human with the talents that you already have. They take your talents and then they just magnify it because they want to see you grow. I think that that's amazing to have around you.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, so Ty sounds like an awesome dude. Like, he really does. And this is a lot of things to throw at him too at this whole moment. And I wasn't saying that in a bad way. It's just real life issues. You never know what these things are going to, what's going to happen when a stress like cancer, where it's literally life and death in this situation. And then the most fascinating thing is you say that's some of the best times you've had. Like, you enjoyed it so much. I don't know how many people have ever said that about cancer.
I don't think you could say like it wasn't something that I was like, yeah, let's do this, go on vacation. But at the end of the day, I had no choice, right? And so you can make a choice. You can, either be really sad about it. And there were days where I felt down, but I also felt very lucky. Like, I trained almost every single day of my treatment until about the last few weeks, maybe 2 months, because of the cumulative nature. But I had a space to safely train, and just when I felt strong, I was able to be strong. And when I didn't feel strong, I was still able to go and hang out with people and make sure that like my mental sanity was still there. We joked with the doctor. She gave me 11 days after they put my port in. She told me I wasn't allowed to do any physical fitness for 10 days. So on the 11th day, I went to her office and I showed her a video of me doing a clean. And I was like, hey, would you be okay with me doing this? And she was like, sure, but I don't know why you'd want to. And I said to her, I was like, because this is going to save my life, because this is who I am. And I did. I trained almost every single day of my treatment.
Something you said there was very important, and it's not anything close to cancer and this situation. But somebody said something when I broke my foot. Somebody came up and said something. He was a crazy good athlete, and he had some injury issues with his shoulder and stuff. And I think he actually made the CrossFit Games in the Masters division this year. But he came up to me and said something that I thought about because I'd never crossed my mind. He was like, make sure depression doesn't sit in. Like, because I got really depressed when, I can't move and I can't do these certain things. That's never been an issue with me because I've always been like look at a new challenge and just go that direction. But it really hit me that this big, like, gorilla athlete of a man let depression set in over not being able to move and do the things that he loved to do. But, like, you could have, most of the time people would want to rest and keep those things out of there, but you made sure to keep your mind in a positive area and do the things that you love, no matter if you could do them as the top athlete or to the best of what you could do in the past. You just kept doing the things that you love to do, the thing that you gave up the reason you went to do your master's for. You kept doing that thing to keep your mind in a good spot and keep yourself with a positive attitude. I think that's crazy impactful.
I think I also got lucky, in the sense of, like, the doctor told me she'd never seen anything like me in her life. Whereas, like, I truly believe that because I was so physically fit before I got sick, and because I was in a relationship that I wanted to work out, I wanted to have a good time. And I had family and friends that were, supportive, and nobody really, like I said, I've never truly experienced, like, bullying or anything like that. It's never happened to me when it comes to, like, my friends. And so I was just always surrounded by, like, being positive or having fun. Like, yes, things started changing. My body started changing. It was crazy to watch my hormones change. And, like, Ty would just make jokes about it and, like, have fun with it. And we still joke about it because I'm constantly going through some changes right now that, as a result of the chemo, I can't control. And so we just have to make the most of it.
So do you think that you said something interesting? Do you think that, and it's a message, I guess, nowadays with all of this, like, pandemic talk. I don't even like to use that word because it's such a weird thing. But, like, with all of this talk and the eye-opening experience, like the eye-opening thing of America, and in the world really, of health. Like, I'm not talking athletics. I'm talking just health in general, like feeling fit. You said right there that the doctor said they haven't seen anything like you, and that because you were so physically fit, it helped you get through this situation. That's a powerful message that, like, and that's for, I think it's with everything. Like, I think it's with everything. If you are just fit and just generally fit and, like, can move, can squat, you keep your body moving, you keep your muscles fresh. It's like your mind. You keep it fresh. You fight off Alzheimer's and dementia. Like, your body, like, you being physically fit helped save you from a horrible disease. It's a crazy message. Do you send that out to a lot of the people in your class and your programs and stuff where you're like, hey, being physically fit, and this message of, like, fitness, it goes deeper than just having abs and being aesthetically pleasing?
Yeah, I struggle with that every day still. I did a workout before we did this podcast, and I don't love my body right now. I'm still trying to find ways to, go either back to the way I used to be, or, lose weight here and there. But, like, I miss being completely muscular and, like, having the full on drive to be completely competitive. But then I remember, like, just physically moving makes me happy. Like, I did the class workout today, and we moved for 1 hour, and I just felt better. And so, yes, are there things that I know that if I wanted to deep dive into being completely competitive again, I could probably do it. But I don't really have the desire to do that. I just want to be healthy. And I also, like, one of my biggest goals in life, and this sounds so crazy and might sound crazy to some, but I want to be old. I want to be, like, really old. And I've never seen somebody with CP that's, like, super old. And so, like, to me, I want to live the most full life I can. And for those that don't know, like, CP is not degenerative. You can't, it doesn't get worse, and, it doesn't magically get better. But just like if you were to sit on your butt and do nothing all day, your quality of life would be worse. And so, if I want to make my quality of life better, I have to continue to stay active. And active doesn't necessarily have to mean being the most competitive, adaptive CrossFitter you've ever seen in your life. It just means doing things with my life.
And that, I think that's an important message for everybody, because you walk into a gym, and you can say CrossFit gym, whatever. You walk into the any gym and you see the biggest dude and the fittest ladies, and you see all their muscles and you see everything going on. And you're like, it can be where, like, why am I here if I'm not going to be that? Like, if I'm not going to be that ever in my life, why am I here? Like, why am I doing it? And it's exactly for what you just said, because like the emotions of being competitive and then not being competitive, and it's purely your decision, because you probably could, but you don't have the same desire to do that sort of thing. Your life has gone in different avenues, like the same. It takes a different kind of commitment to be a competitive athlete. It really does.
It does.
Like
And I, I
you've lived
wouldn't
that
say
life.
I wouldn't say I miss it.
Go ahead.
I wouldn't really say I said I wouldn't say I miss it. I I miss the community. I feel like the CrossFit community at large has changed a little bit, and I kind of miss how that used to be, like where people would drop into different boxes all the time, or you would be wearing different shirts. Like, you don't really see that as much, but at the end of the day, things change.
Yeah, yeah, they do, they do. Um, so what's the future for you in this program? And I know you moved to Arizona, and you're doing your thing out there. And what's next for you? Like, what are your plans with this whole thing that you have going on? And are you still, since you said you created the program at Wadapalooza, are you still heavily involved in that?
So I wouldn't say I'm heavily involved. I'm still involved in the sense of, like, I can message people at Wadapalooza if they need my help or if they want my help. I would be there in a second. But I like seeing it evolve. And, the adaptive programming is now in the hands of my good friend Chris Stoutenberg, and he has taken it to different levels. So, like, it's not a point of me being like, oh, I own it, right? Like, it's not mine. I
Yeah.
just helped start it. But for me, I really want to see Staying Driven grow. I think that it's just kind of scratching the surface of its potential, and we're doing really well right now. But I definitely think that it's a name that it's going to continue to be recognizable in the adaptive community at large, and hopefully it helps a lot of people. And then for me personally, November will mark 5 years cancer free. So although we are legally married, we got married in December, we are having a big wedding celebration in November. So it'll be a dual celebration, which will be fun.
That is really awesome. That is really awesome. Well, stay driven. Um, where can they find out about? Do they find out about your stuff at your Instagram and all that? Like, is that where they find out about the
Yeah.
Stay Driven
So
program?
if they wanted to find anything for me personally, it's just Steph the Hammer. And then if they wanted to find anything about Staying Driven Fitness on Instagram and StayingDrivenLive.com.
StayingDrivenLive.com. The last, I have to know where you got the nickname the Hammer.
That's a good question. So my maiden name was Hammerman. and I was doing the crush games. It was my first ever competition that I did, and I PR'd my lift at 43 pounds from my knees. I cleaned 43 pounds, and the announcer, who is a good friend of mine, he just screamed out, "Steph, the hammer man," and it just stuck. So, yeah.
It's
Now I'm Steph the Hammer Roach, but it still works.
That's such an awesome nickname. That's such an awesome nickname. Like that it's a tough one to get rid of. Like you're called the Hammer. That's so that's so awesome.
There
Oh,
was a guy on an airplane that recognized me, and he was like, "Oh my God, it's the Hammer!" And I thought that was the craziest thing ever.
well, you really are like you're amazing. You're awesome. You're very inspirational. But like just the positivity in your mindset that comes out, where it comes from, like you pursuing the things that you love in life. I think that's one thing I love to look at in human beings is the things that you like. It's one thing to say it out loud, right? It's one thing to say it and be like, yeah, I'm gonna go do it. But like for you, it's a reality that you don't seem to do anything that doesn't bring you joy in your life. You know, you want to live your most fulfilling life, but like even going to school, there's a lot of people that want to stick to what you did and you didn't do it. You went a totally different route because you liked to do this. And when, you know, things could get taken away from you with the cancer, you stuck with it. And because like this is what I love to do. I love to do these set of things and these things bring me joy, and I'm not going to deviate from that path because we only get one life to do it, right? And so that takes a lot to do that. And I love that in especially in successful humans or people who seem to be on a path like you're on, is that they tend to look at what they tend to understand what they truly want to do, and then they make that happen. They don't work like go do something different because somebody thinks they should.
Yeah, and I'm pretty proud of it. And I think about my friend Scott, who passed away when I was 15, and I just hope that I'm doing his legacy justice, and that he thinks that what I'm doing is awesome. And at the end of the day, like that's kind of what pushes me forward. Is I want to make a difference in the world that we live in, and I think I get to do that every day.
That's so awesome. All right, well, everybody go check out Steph the Hammer on Instagram, Steph Roach. Man, this has been a pleasure. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Thanks so much.